Like, do you think that we have like a modern day genius who is being overlooked in real time, but will only be appreciated as time passes by?
So I'm a little bit different. I think I'm maybe closer to Jordan in the sense that with Vince Staples is kind of hit and miss a lot of the time with me. But I'm going to give it a 3.9. I'm going to give this one.
Okay.
The reason being is that I wouldn't say it's his best work, but I do actually disagree with you, Jordan, in the sense that I prefer the calmer, more reflective, monotone, moody, whatever the word is we're going to look for it. I prefer that version of Vince Staples and the high energy, dance, like mosh pit type of sound. It's not every day for me, and I prefer this. So for me, I really do like this particular tape. There's like certain moments which are like, I'll get into it a bit later on, but there's a particular song for a particular reason, which on this particular tape, I said it to Ash as soon as it came out, is a complete standout for me. Yeah. We'll get into that. It's quite obvious, I think.
Might be unanimous.
Yeah, we'll get into that definitely later on. The other thing I do agree, and I think this is probably why I deduct some points from it, is that he doesn't really get out of gear one. The beats change maybe on a couple of the songs, like the Mustard beat and Free the Homies as well. Like the beats are a little bit more energetic there, but he doesn't really get out of gear one. The other thing I'll say as well is that I don't feel at any point in the particular album, listen to where he raps, I don't think, like, listening to it, well, not even just listen to it, like, when I'm listening to it, I'm trying to rap along. I feel like it's very easy to rap along to it. I feel like it's quite simple in that sense. So, 3.9, did I say?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sticking with that, 3.9.
Okay, cool. I'm going to touch on one of your points, but yeah, carry on.
That's actually quite interesting. So it seems like I'm in the minority here as far as
you have some support.
Yeah.
But with that, then like I think it's a very interesting album. You know, I think the narrative of the album is quite interesting, and that's something which I touched upon. But I'm also interested to kind of like get your thoughts and takeaways on what you kind of feel the narrative was and why it has such a relevant place in his heart at this present moment in time in his life.
Well, from the interviews and stuff that I've watched, it's like, firstly on about what I think the themes are. Like, I think it's about the place that you live is in every way is going to sort of like disappoint you, and particularly if you're from where he's from. And the album, I think, and I understand what you're saying. I get why it might feel like Gear One, but I don't think it is still, because I think that he's making a very localized sound. He's making there's a reference. I feel like the reference point is localized, and that's intentional.
Like DJ Quick as
Yeah. And it's like, and I think that's again, it's like totally fine with me. Maybe it's because I'm just like too fully on board on what he wants.
On the Vince Staples.
On the Vince Staples thing, and like having so much respect for him as a character and what I think something like this means. Like I think you mentioned it already, right? Like he doesn't want to be making this kind of stuff. Like he views being a rapper as a job. Like he's not super passionate about rap. He said he never really grew up listening to music just because he didn't have access to it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to make.
He's like your anti-rapper. Like.
Yeah, he really is.
He actually is. He embodies a lot of the anti-industry sentiments that you know allows him to demark himself from the general crowd, but also allow him to be quite successful in his own ways. Like in terms of approaching contract, in terms of approaching performances, he's very professional, and he doesn't participate in like the drama that will get people caught up in nonsense, and they end up being on the news for this or that.
There's more like authenticity wrapped around him.
And he says as well, I watched in a recent interview that he was saying about how just because of the experiences that he's had growing up, like in the environments that he's had, like he knows how to he's like inherently political, because in that he knows how to navigate situations. He knows what questions not to ask and which questions to ask. Like he's not going to provide opinions about specific people, because I think he's very, very aware of his influence. Like and he uses it in such a conscious way. And actually, and by that, by using it, I mean he actually refuses to use his influence in a certain kind of way, unless honestly I think it's making some money by the commercial deals, which I'm not complaining about that Calvin Klein ad. Like, honestly, I'm just not. But
yeah, and I like that approach of him. He understands the business. He understands, but he's so much. He wants people to rethink about why it's set up this way. And one of the interviews that he's had as well, where the journalist was asking him about what does he feel like his position is in the rap game, in reference to the fact that he was opening for Tyler. He's opening for Tyler right now on tour, and he wanted to kind of get an idea. He wanted to get an idea from Vince Staples whether him being the supporting act is something that he's bothered by. He's like, why would I be bothered by that? You know, I'm the supporting act. My job here is to be supportive, not like the show is not about me. And the journalist was trying to be like, wait, what about when you're on that 40-minute set? Does it not feel like it's about you a bit? He's like, no, it's not about me. Because at the end of the day, if I get into that mindset, a lot of people lie to themselves because of that. And there's this bravado that rappers are supposed to have.
Yeah.
But that defeats the purpose, because if you're at a concert, your name is not on the big bill. If you're now trying to do something that's going against that, you're almost sabotaging yourself. And he used the example of corporation. He's like, Coca-Cola has multiple corporations, and everyone working there is working for the advancement of the brand. I'm part of the hip-hop kind of brand, essentially. Why would I want to do anything that's not advancing the brand, essentially? So it's better for me to work in tandem with Tyler and produce something that's going to be benefiting the culture, as opposed to
just doing something
that's going to be self-serving. And he also made something that was really funny as well. He was like, the rap game is the only genre that is used as a game. Like, no other genre is mentioned as a game because of the fact that certain accesses and privileges are manipulated by external forces. Like, you don't hear of the rock game, you don't hear of the country game, you don't hear of the
pop game, the country game,
the folk game.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, why is it rap game? Because there's supposed to be a winner and a loser.
Yeah.
And people buy into that. And that's why so much of the nonsense that happens in the culture happens, because that sense of there can only be one winner, there can only be somebody at the top. And I just was like, for a rapper who has been very consistent in his views as well, because this is something that he came out of the gate with, I appreciate that clarity, you know, and I wish more rappers were able to just hear that and take those wisdom on board, essentially.
Yeah, fully. And I think that, you know, when you're asking like what we think that album's about, and I think and why, what it means to him, like I think exactly what you were just describing based on the interviews and stuff. But then it's his clarity, and I think it's his strength of character, his ability to discern noise from signal is what makes everything that he does so strong, because it's everything is so intentional and focused that it. And so true to what we can see of what he reveals to us of his character, that I think it really helps me in like onboarding with the album. So while you're saying, I understand what you're saying, like it feels like Gear One, it sounds simple, it's easy to rap along to, but it's really, really deep.
I should definitely clear that up. I mean, just in the sense of the sound. I'm well aware of the reason why I think across the whole album he's in Gear One. It's because it's so reflective. And it's like something very traumatizing the whole way through. So you're not exactly going to be like singing high pitch to that or anything like that.
But so was Summertime '06, right?
Yeah, true. And I think that's my favorite project by him. And I think there's parts of that album which are very similar to this particular project as well. I think an underrated narrative within this particular album, I think a lot of people might have missed it. It's kind of how all the gang life and all that kind of stuff is going on. But I think the thing I took away from it is kind of like how it affects his relationships with women across the album. Yeah. And it's like you notice in small little pockets. I think most notably is Rose Street, where he mentions stuff about it's the actual hook. What's love? Talking about love. What's that? All that. Yeah, all that bit.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's just a very cute, clever thing that he's put in the project. And I think it works very well.
See, I don't know if he's actually talking about. I kind of instinctively I feel like he's talking about romantic relationships, but I don't think that's what he's talking about. Like when he's saying like even if he's saying like we see in Love Was That, Trust Was That. I think he's also talking about his relationship with his environment. I think that he uses he uses love songs. Like when I feel like it's kind of always a hint of irony with him when he talks and he says, I've never written a love song because the whole album's called Ramona Pop Broke My Heart, and it's like that it is love songs, but it's not necessarily romantic. With love. It's about his relationship and the intimacy that you have in the place. Like with the place that you're born, like, or
even the tools that you use.
Yeah,
but we'll get into that.
It's interesting though, like what you speak on about Gear One.
Yeah.
Right, and it reminds me of a conversation that we had regarding Kendrick Lamar's recent album, where I was like, how I think it's my favorite. It's one of my favorite Kendrick Lamar albums. Same. Because there is no kind of extraterrestrial thing I need to kind of understand to fully kind of understand what the album's about. Like it's really there in front of you, right? But also like I like it because it feels like it's his most imperfect album, and there's not like this intensity wrapped around the project, right? It just felt very carefree, and I was able to appreciate that as a listener. I say to Asha that I feel that musically it wasn't perfect because he's trying to articulate that he isn't a perfect person, right? And then to her response was, Kendrick Lamar fan trying to, find perfection in imperfection, and like, which is fair.
Yeah, like you're saying that he's trying to say that he's infallible, but actually, like by doing so, like and doing so well in your view, right?
Yeah.
Like he's achieving exactly what he needed to, which means he's still perfect.
But this is like but this is my point though, right? Because
it's tautology or something. Right? Yeah.
It brings me to the whole topic around Gear One.
Yeah.
Right, because for me, like it's quite monotone. That's what I get from it. Yeah. But I think the monotone is intentional because it's there to articulate like the desensitization that you tend to get when you're living in these environments, right? Because
he touches on that a lot lyrically as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's another layer that he adds on to this project to provide it, more texture.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what we may be considering as like a criticism, could actually be something which is intentional.
Yeah. Definitely get the point.
Depending if you're a stan or not.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that sense of desensitization is something that he has definitely kept consistent. He hasn't done it as much until recently, but if you watch his music videos, for example, he's very blank-faced. He's very really calm and collected. Like even in the midst of chaos, he's just stone-faced and he just goes about his stuff.
From Senorita, right?
Like that's the one that's coming straight to mind. Yeah.
That video, my God.
I was putting on someone close to me onto Vince Staple, and that was the song that I even thought about as well. I was like, the concept of this song embodies what Vince Staple is about. He does a lot of commentary on social issues. He understands the exploitative nature of hip hop, and he's against that, and he talks about it very bravely as well. And even when he sometimes participates in that exploitation, he's very aware of it, and he calls himself out. And I remember there was one song where he said something about he spoke about how he asked where my niggas at, and then the audience is a white audience. Like he's like, how can I ask them where my niggas are when there's no niggas in the audience?
Yeah, but you heard the response back.
Yeah. And that sense of being acutely aware of where he is and who he is, I respect that from him a lot. Mm-hmm. So what was I going to say on to your point about the Gear 5 thing?
Oh.
You were like, I didn't know that was going to be so controversial.
The Gear 1, I think in him being monotone, it's providing contrast to the sound that's around him. Like some of the songs, if you remove the lyrics, they're very party songs, and that's again, you mentioned localized sound. It's a very long bitch album. Like this is something that you can imagine them at the barbecue just blasting, or someone is driving around blasting, and he's trying to like cater to that audience. So the fact that he's going to be very boisterous on the song almost negates the nature of what he's trying to talk about. Like, he's talking about people going around, like, it's a lifestyle. Look at the skit. He's like, if you're trying to survive and you need to have a gun to survive, and given enough time, if you use that gun along, you might end up liking it because of the dynamic that you're in.
It's
It's that sense of slowly internalizing the toxic environment around you.
Yeah.
And he's made it adamant that he's against that. But how does he separate himself without, like, it's like he's still trying to grapple around, I'm from here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be from here, or I want to be something different, and I'm trying to, but this is still a lot of what I am.
But you know what's interesting though? I think Vince Staples is very much in the same ballpark of like a Kendrick Lamar, particularly like earlier Kendrick Lamar. Because the reason why I say that is because as far as hip hop goes, and I guess culture goes, right? Like when you like look at the 90s, right? We've had, you know, gangster rap very much dominate, you know, the hip hop scene.
Yeah.
Right, and but that was because people were living that life, right? But they didn't have, you know, they didn't have
An
a
outlet.
forum, an outlet to kind of express what was going on in their environments.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, though, is that not everyone who lives in those environments operate in criminal activity, and it was a thing where those people didn't have a voice. And then you see like the babies of that now, who may have been reared in families or environments where there was high crime, high this and high that, but instead of them actually being participants in it, they're more so
looking at it from a lens from outside, or
exactly.
like even if it's
Spectators are-
directly affecting them, it's not as if they're the ones carrying out the acts and whatnot.
Or like some fly on the wall kind of commentary.
Exactly, and it's a thing where now that narrative seems to be more so dominating over the outright criminal kind of aspect of things.
Are you talking about specifically within Staples, or you feel like generally
the general
speaking?
rap scene.
Generally, I would say.
I feel like I need to deep that because I'm not sure if I agree.
I don't agree either, because I
Okay.
feel like the lens of hip hop has again geared the dial of hip hop has geared against towards the people who are committing the crimes and who are participating in kind of
Are we thinking
destructive
Griselda?
lifestyle.
Oh, I wouldn't say. Okay, I'm not gonna use loaded language.
No,
But
no.
like
Griselda is exempt,
Loaded
a little
language.
bit. I'm talking more of like the people who are doing the trap sounds,
right,
and
okay.
then they're like the expensive jewelries, but they're still in the
But
streets.
that's a scene which is saturated, right?
Yeah.
And always has been saturated. I wouldn't necessarily say that has expanded so much over time. It just has new faces within it. Like this space, as far as people being able to narrate what it's like from the outside looking in, that's a lot more new. And you have more people now filling that vacuum when compared to people kind of like
Speaking of their own
speaking
experiences.
exactly.
But I'm of the opinion that Vince Staples is speaking from his own experiences.
Yes.
I very
Partially,
much,
though. It's partially, I think.
like,
with him.
I very much believe that, even though in his personal interview he speaks about the fact that when he was, amongst his friends, he's the weird one, he's the geek, he's the nerd, he's not the one that's been seen as the typical gangsters. But I still believe when they were trying to do a ride out, he was in those
Involved,
seats,
yeah.
and he was pressing those triggers, and I think that's another reason why I even appreciate a lot more of his perspective, because he's not talking from I was just observing things and I'm talking about it from a detached point of view. No, I was there when probably one of my homies was bleeding out to death, or I had to go and shoot these guys because I need to represent from my hoods, and I think the contrast of his aesthetic compared to his lifestyle is so baffling to me as well.
Yeah.
It's just on the point about like how we're framing the conversation around inside versus outside. Like, I'm not sure there actually is a distinction. I think that's kind of the point that he's sort of getting to a little bit, because even if you're not like, it's not that it's that there's a relationship when we're talking about like inside and outside. Like they can't. It's a bit difficult to have it, to be an outside and live within it, because that's like it's going to affect your day to day, because your friends, like, you know, your friends are going to be there one time, not another. And like, how is that not being on the inside? Like, even if it's not, I don't mean inside in terms of like, as in necessarily a like part of an organization.
Yeah, that's what,
But so there is inside and outside of that possibly, but if you're so like viscerally experiencing then how is it at all outside?
Fair. That's a very good point, to be honest.
You don't agree?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
you are collateral damage.
It's more so like your collateral damage.
Yeah.
Like it's not necessarily something that
you're involved in.
That you're involved in. You know, because if someone.
But don't you think it's more grey than that?
But I also believe that we need to kind of be aware, like, it wasn't always the people who are part of a gang who go and do the shootings. Someone, by being a brother of yours, because this is your...
As in you become a target for certain things, and you then can evolve that way.
You also sometimes pick up a piece and go out and do things. Not because you are necessarily represented from your hood, but just because out of the loss that you've experienced and you feel that sense of, I need to get some revenge. Yeah. And you will take a gun because it's easy accessible and this is almost the cultural norm. You will do these things not because you're affiliated to any organization, but just because that's how it goes.
I think that's what I meant by like the grey thing. I don't know if there is like a.
I get what you're saying.
Line
you're speaking from a lens of like the whole, like all the poverty and all the kind of like criminal activity is under one massive umbrella. Whether you're directly involved in the direct, like let's say the gang activity or whatever, or you're a victim of everything that's going around you. You see them as being underneath that umbrella. So I definitely get your point. But I do think there is a distinction between the two in terms of your everyday lifestyle within it.
And you even have a case of someone like a Kendrick where even though he's not member of any gang, by association, by the fact that these are his childhood friends, this is his neighborhood, he get picked on and he gets asked, where are you from? And he gets, you know, the damages that comes with being part of a gang, even though he's not part of a gang. So I agree with you with that sense of there's not really an in and out. It's just a case of
that's the environment.
That's the environment
like, but I'm not saying that there's not a difference between
for sure. Sorry about my face there.
Those are some really, really interesting points, and I think it's interesting that we have you here, of which he's a very big fan of Vince Staples. Like, do you think that we have like a modern day genius who is being overlooked in real time, but will only be appreciated as time passes by?
I think that his music is so not like specific to a given point in time. Like I don't think he's like tying himself to any trends, which I feel like means that his stuff has aged well, is going to continue to age well. And he's, again, like the fact that he's like true to his character. I think it's hard for that stuff to go out of
style.
Yeah, I was going to say out of style, but I think what I mean is I think for it to age poorly, I think it's hard for that to happen if it's so true to like character. But I don't know if he's overlooked, because I feel like I think that he has a very like strong and core like fan base. And I think it depends on what you want as an artist.
True.
And so, like, if he had the ambitions of like Tyler, like then he'd be over. I guess it would be considered over. Like Tyler, and like at certain stages of his career, I feel like has been really overlooked. But that's because he's wanted more, and he's wanted a different audience. He's wanted to explore different things. And whereas Vince, I feel like he's happy. Like if he says he's like he doesn't seem to get the thing of he's trying to stay away from being overly affected by external validation. He says that it's the support and like it's his family saying he's proud of him. They're proud of him every day. That matters to him. He wants to start writing like the TV show and stuff, and like that's something that he wants to do. So I don't think. I guess what I mean is like that. He might not be the most popular artist, like the most commercially successful, but And if he was, then he says he wouldn't be rapping. But I think it's not overlooked because I think that he's considered. I think people respect him, you know.
Got you.
I very much agree. I feel like Vince never aspired to be the biggest rap artist. I think he's even said like he sees rap as a mean of expressing his art, and he wants to explore other means of expressing his art, as in TV shows, as in movies, and all of that kind of stuff. So rap supremacy is not his goal, essentially. And I love that question when he got asked like, oh, the Google is saying that you have 5 million as a wealth. And he's like, you think if I had 5 million, I would be sitting here with you? And I love that because it's such an honest, because somebody else will have lied and be like, oh yeah, I got 5 million, even though you're not living that lifestyle. You don't have 5 million in the bank, and you're not worth 5 million. No, he's very honest. He's like, yo, I don't have 5 million, because if I did, I would not be here.
He says he wouldn't be rapping. He wouldn't be making music.
He wouldn't be rapping at all.
He says,
so I think he's very comfortable where he is at, and seeing it as a job. The same way that you have people who, in your job, you have people who are trying to be the CEO, and then some people who are just happy to come in, clock out, and just live their life, low key. I think that's where he's occupied himself, and that's nothing to be knocked off. Like, I very much respect that.
Got you.
I find it interesting that you see him as overlooked. I think maybe if you're looking at maybe in terms of commercial success, in terms of the numbers, but I think that's part of the kind of, as we say, the rap game. It's not the trendiest sound to be this reflective, I don't think, in terms of like numbers. You're not going to go to the club and hear it's most of any of the songs
maybe
pretty much on this.
Magic will be there. Lemonade.
Maybe Lemonade, I think, is the one.
Lil Fade, I could hear. So I know it's
Lil
different
Fade's
album, but
So I think that's the challenge with that. I also think with that as well, if you were to listen to this, if you did a tour of this particular album, and also Vince Staples, that album just before it, or the EP, was it EP? Or was it an album?
EP, 10 songs.
I think it would be a strange and different Vince Staples concert to what I experienced when I went to see him in 2018. I think it would be very stripped back.
What would the production even be?
I don't know.
Like, I'm trying to imagine it, because like you said, Big Fish, I think that's one you're referring to, right? Like the big TV's massive set. He's really present. It's a very visually stunning. Like it's as chaotic as and jarring as the album cover. And like you said, sonically, it is live music.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
what would it look like?
what would it? Yeah, I have no idea.
What were the crowd doing? And the crowd just gonna just
just sort of
yeah. It'll be a lot.
Although that sing-along comment that you mentioned, I don't know if it was Jordan or you, but you mentioned that it's kind of easy to rap along.
Yeah.
I think maybe that might be intentional for concerts where he realized that, to get a crowd engaged, say something that's going to be easy to rap along. And
that was me, yeah.
Even when he did the song, when he did Fun, it was very, I felt that was a concert album.
Yeah.
Like the sonics of it, it's a lot of sing-along, it's a lot of choruses, and it's just it was designed for festival basically. And I feel like as an artist he understands that market, that demand. He has songs for concerts, but if he's headlining his own tour, I kind of get what you mean by what would he be picking out. He probably would have to do a lot of his old stuff.
But but when I was, obviously you touched upon me saying him being overlooked and so on and so forth, right? But it's not even really so much. Well, I guess to a degree it is including the fans, but it's thing though that when we hear about influential kind of artists of this era, right? I don't tend to hear his name.
He's not.
Is he influential though?
As far.
Is he?
I wouldn't say he's influential.
But I don't
he's
think
important.
he's
He's not influential, and I don't think he's trying to be.
Yeah.
Who would you say are his kids?
I think I think influential, as you can say, maybe a little bit of a loaded word.
Yeah.
Right. But I think as far as artists who, I was gonna say fuck it. Well, fuck it. Let's say influential because when we do think of this current crop of artists, he is one of the most notable ones out there, right? May not be to the heights of a
Kendrick,
J. Cole or Kendrick or whatnot, but he's big enough, right? But even with that said, he doesn't ever tend to get any kind of shine when it comes to, you know.
Who's your top 5?
Yeah, well, who's like the best artist driving, you know, the musicality of things
But I don't
forward.
know if he is. That's the thing. I adore his like, music, and obviously like so. But it's like I don't know. I'm trying to can you help me understand? Because I'm trying to figure out. I'm trying to think of an artist who I think has been directly influenced by him. I can't think of anyone.
I can't.
And I don't think that's something. Yeah, I don't think he wants to be remembered like that either. I think he's understood his lane. And when I think of Vince Staples, I think of movie soundtracks. I'm thinking like Black Panther movie soundtrack, Queen and Slim movie soundtrack.
Okay.
I'm
Your
thinking
love is so free.
like he has found himself and the commercials as well. Like the commercials, like I think he's understood that okay, he's gonna use this hip hop notoriety, get the real bag, and just keep it pushing like that. And I don't think he's looking to be on everyone's top 5 or top 10 because that to him does not.
But that's not your choice anyway.
Yeah.
That if you're in the top 5 or whatnot, that's not your choice to make. That's people's
how they've taken to your work.
That's how they've taken to you,
True,
right?
But I think a lot of it sometimes comes to your networking within the game, the industry,
Which he says he doesn't do.
So for you to be mentioned by certain magazines and certain, you know, publications and certain names in the industry, you need to kind of know them on a personal level.
I get that point. I hear that, but then if you want to be talking about someone who doesn't network, right, but is still considered as one of like the greatest of all time, maybe even the greatest of all time, you know, you can use someone like MF Doom as an example,
Yeah,
right?
but there are children of Doom. There are like plenty. There's
so
a
he's
genre of Doom, right? Like, but then proper legacy that you can see. Like, can you think of an artist that has been influenced by Vince like that?
Not yet.
Oh,
Not
you
yet.
feel like it's to come because
Exactly.
he's so young.
Exactly.
He's been in this for 10 years, man. Like,
Yeah.
But the thing is, though, is using Doom as an example, though, like, going back to him, though, like, we've only, in real time, like, he wasn't really understood, right? He was understood, like, you know, to some degree, but nowhere near to the magnitude that he's understood now. As you say, like, there's now an entire scene dedicated to people who've been influenced by MF Doom, which is why I said earlier, like, do you think that his genius is something which isn't being registered yet or appreciated yet in real time? And I'm not to say that there's going to be a whole load of Vince Staples fanboys.
I don't even know what that would sound like because I think his sound is so different. And honestly, I actually don't even think he's particularly pioneering or innovative.
Okay,
in a kind of
see,
way. I think he's so good. I think he's really proficient. I think he's very creative. But in terms of doing something, I think his execution is always perfect. But I'm trying to think. Maybe I'm not technical enough to understand it, but I feel like I'm trying to think of an album that is so
forward.
new. That's like a new thing. And I think I'm
Big
cool
Fish
with
Theory
that,
was something like that. Had he carried on with Big Fish Theory's sound and aesthetics, maybe he would have been breaching a new ground and to explore that and
the cross genre
thing.
thing.
But he hasn't. He just explored that and he left it.
Yeah.
On the MF Doom topic, I feel like the difference between an MF Doom and a Vince Staples, obviously there's multiple. I'm not trying to compare the two of them, but in terms of being that recluse and still generating that sort of admirations and kind of like that status in the game, I feel MF Doom, because of his high lyricism,
his technical
and
ability,
his secrecy,
good point.
his high lyricism and secrecy will generate some sort of cult following because he was doing things that no one has ever done before. And
beat selection and so on.
So he works with the same producer. It works with the same producers like a lot. So like Doom.
Doom. Okay.
Yeah, not Vince.
So
Vince,
I feel like
just jumps about.
Yeah.
MF Doom would generate that sort of curiosity from people, and people would want to follow him just to figure out his brain, his mind, and everything like that. Vince Staples, on the other hand, as open or as recluse as he is, he's very open and honest about who he is. He doesn't do a lot of theatric in his appearance. He's had the same haircut.
That one level.
And his style is classic.
His style is very simple as well. So I don't think there's a lot about him that would draw people in a lot That's what I'm trying to say. Which is
yeah,
why
I
he hasn't
agree,
got a lot
yeah.
of people who will be influenced by him like that. He's a very regular Joe.
How would one be influenced by him? I really want to answer this question. How
And
would...
he even said in his interview, like, if you're trying to dress up as me for Halloween,
Yeah, difficult. Yeah.
I'm blocking you. Like,
It's-
he's not phased by that kind of stuff.
It's funny though, isn't it? Because like oftentimes when it, because you're right, he does have like, you know, this everyday Joe kind of knack about him, doesn't he? But when it comes to artists that people tend to align themselves with or relate with, is usually artists who provide some kind of function of aspiration. You know, I
It's
want
the
to.
opposite.
I want to be like this. I want to be like that person, or because of this.
Do you want to live in Ramona Park? I don't think so.
I don't think he believes in false idols.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the struggle for him, and it's not really a struggle, I wouldn't say struggle is probably the wrong word completely, but I think in terms of being an influence to people, it's so challenging to do that when I think the biggest drawing of Vince Staples' music is the fact it's personal stories.
Yeah.
How can you have to relate to it 100% to be his basically one of his sons or one of his daughters in the game, I think. So I think he was always going to struggle with that. I think the MF Doom one, definitely technical ability is the fact he's such a pioneer with his sound and that kind of stuff is a complete world away from Vince Staples, who I think in terms of actually just outright rapping ability and all that kind of stuff, it's quite
Basic.
simple. Yeah, basic, simple. These sound like really negative
No,
words, but
but
it is what it is.
yeah.
But the drawing is definitely the fact it's personal
I
stories.
will
and
say
clever.
though, if anyone is to be inspired by him, it will be by his character, not by
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
lyrical
Exactly.
ability or his artistry, by his character.
His
Just
archetype.
his authenticity, his genuine, sense of I know myself. I want to be
Mm.
presented this way, and I need to. Yeah, I'm staying firm to that.
Yeah.
I feel like we're gonna finish this without mentioning the brilliance of When the Sparks.
Oh yeah, we're going
No,
to.
that
We need
was
to.
fun.
We need
That
to.
was-
We need
that
to.
was this
Yeah.
song. So you know when you were referring earlier about the gun and about the like what it means to you, and how when I was like mentioning as well about
Yeah.
it like love songs sounding like love songs, but actually
It's
they're not
completely-
romantic.
yeah.
They're not romantic. They're
Yeah.
like, and there's always this like fearful and like relationship he has with like tools and
Yeah.
like and of the environment as well. And like I think that's sort of the genius of this album. I
Yeah.
think is like his metaphor. I think he really goes back to like hip hop folk stories, the way that they get told, the traditional like metaphorical like.
The metaphors in that song are absolute
Just
genius.
beyond.
Amazing.
I think my favorite one is the fact about, I think something along the lines of, when you're back, we'll go 1,000 rounds or
100
something.
rounds,
Something
yeah.
like that. Yeah, something like
100
that.
rounds.
And I was like, it's such an amazing thing because
Yeah.
obviously on first listen, if you're not listening to it deeply,
You're gonna
you
think
it's
that
a
he's
love
referring
story.
to his
Yeah.
girl or
Yeah.
like one of the ride or die chick that
Yeah.
you prefer that you have found in rap music, but analyzing it in closer listening is like, wow, he's referring to his gun.
Yeah.
And that makes so much sense, and it just gets so much more beautiful because the melody.
Is this one where he says, you gave me a 38 and said that I was special?
Yeah, I think
No,
it's
no,
the-
no, no,
the-
no.
the- which- no, no,
That's,
that's-
No, that's the one where he's like, hide me from the police, and
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
like-
the slow one, the one that
In Our
kind of
Special
sounds
Place.
like.
It's got the No Love sample
Yeah,
by
yeah.
So
Vibes.
beautiful.
And
and
I
that,
love
that
that song.
song
Love
is
that
put together so well. Like whoever was doing the singing,
Lives.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
amazing. And again, for a Vince Staple, that's not typical.
Yeah.
That sound is not typical.
No. It's
that,
like, yeah.
that sound is something that you could hear.
It sounds like Massive Attack.
Yeah, and it's like, wow, like he did it so well. That's why he wrote that beat amazingly.
Yeah.
Like you said, the metaphors on there, brilliant.
Unbelievable.
And it's like, wow, like
I think he's a liar when he says that he doesn't really appreciate music.
He said that because he's like, he says he didn't grow up around it because he didn't have access to it because he's like, he's like 29 and grew up not having access to the internet properly, like in like a way that
growing
you
up.
can stream.
Yeah.
And then not also like CDs and stuff, like not being as much of a thing. And so he just literally didn't have access. Like it was just the radio. That was his access to music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But would you
What
say
were you gonna say though?
now though? Would you say that he's not? I think he's
I
definitely.
think he's trolling now.
Yeah, 100%.
He's
because
like-
Yeah,
across
yeah,
his
yeah.
career, he's been so experimental with a lot of different
Ex-
sounds.
that's what I mean.
Right at
He
the start
says he
to-
doesn't make beats though. He's like, why would I make beats if someone else can make them better?
Yeah, of course.
Like,
But
so-
across the,
But that's fine. That's fine. But you need to have the air
Yeah.
to appreciate.
yeah, what's good.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? So,
He may be trolling, and he may be right as well. He said something like,
I think there's a lot of trolling.
100%.
That's the thing about him. You never know when he's fucking with you. Oh, sorry, my swear.
he said something
Yeah,
like,
of
he said something about how he doesn't consider himself an artist because when he look at people who breathe and live and breathe music, he's not like that. So he feels hesitant to call himself like a music head like that.
Yeah.
But I still believe I don't consider myself to be breathing and living music, but I can definitely appreciate quality music
Yeah.
over trash. So I think that's where he is at.
Trash, subjective.
Oh man. I think we're quite pressured for time now.
Oh,
Has
okay.
anyone's rating changed?
No, it hasn't. It hasn't. I think I'm gonna give it some more listens. I think for the amount of time I've given it, it probably will take a little bit more for me to fully appreciate it. But it's definitely kind of opened me up to, uncovering other things that I may have missed, and I appreciate you all for that.
Thanks for having me.
Definitely, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us, for sure.
But as always, thank you for staying tuned and watching this episode. What do you think about it? Do you agree with what we said? Do you disagree? If you got something to say, just add it to the comment section, and you can follow us at YouTube and Instagram at Beats, Rhymes and Debate. But that's all for now, folks, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Peace.